Welcome to Cultivated Live for March 14th, 2024. It's Pi Day, 3.14 for all of you paying attention. I'm Jay Rosenthal. I'm the co-founder of Cultivated Media and the host of Cultivated Live. And since we launched, our goal at Cultivated has been to be reader first, providing the cannabis industry with the most important, insightful, and useful information to our audience every day through our daily newsletter. And we want to also meet the industry where it was online. So we stream this on LinkedIn and YouTube every day. And we love having this live stream daily to bring on guests like we will bring on in a moment. Krista Raymer, the founder and CEO of Vetrina, the foremost cannabis retail consultancy. She'll be with us after the news. We're going to talk about merchandising online and I think in real life as well for cannabis retailers. But before we do that, let's get to today's news. If you thought the mention of cannabis and the State of the Union was a one-off for the Biden White House, well, you were wrong, because Vice President Kamala Harris is hosting a cannabis roundtable discussion tomorrow with a group that have received cannabis pardons, as well as Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, who's leading a similar effort in his home state. Now, the days and weeks following the State of the Union are a time when the president and their administration set off to double down on the key themes of the annual speech. So this year, it's especially important to morph the State of the Union, which was last week, into the general election, which is in November. And it's why the president has been in Georgia and is now in Michigan immediately following his speech to drum up support for his campaign. So the fact that cannabis reform is part of the post-State of the Union communications plan and political plan signals that the White House and the Biden-Harris ticket are putting cannabis reform near front and center in the campaign. Now, this roundtable is happening again tomorrow. Fat Joe will be there, Chris Goldstein will be there, and many others who are who received pardons as part of President Biden's actions. Now, of course, we are still waiting for safer banking in the Senate and then the House. We're waiting for the DEA to reschedule or deschedule cannabis, but clearly the Biden-Harris ticket is putting cannabis on the campaign trail, which leads to our second story of the day. Now, writing for The Free Press, two former Republican administration officials are taking on legalization, and not in a good way. The piece was written by former Trump Attorney General Bill Barr and John Walters, who's a former member of the President George W. Bush's cabinet as director of the Office of National Drug Control Policy. They wrote a piece called "Weed is Dangerous, Legalizing It Was a Mistake." They go through a long list of reasons that you've probably heard why legalization hasn't or won't work, including the social toll of legalization, the bad experiences in states like California and Colorado, and negative health impact. But why this is increasingly important, especially given the first story we talked about, is that Barr and Walters are both serious people and sought-after thought leaders in the Republican Party on issues of justice and policy. And the fact that they're speaking out now against legalization, I think, or we think, gives anti-legalization Republicans both political cover and policy ammunition. And as we noted a few weeks back, there is a group of senators already pushing back on the DEA's decision around rescheduling. And we know that SAFER may come up this year before the election in the Senate because Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has already mentioned that. So Republicans appeared nervous that the twin legalization policy wins, which may come around safer banking and descheduling or rescheduling, they're trying to blunt that wind that the Democrats may have on their back on this specific issue. And that's the news for today. Again, follow everything we're doing at cultivated.news. Subscribe to our daily newsletter, Cultivated Daily, there. And with that, I'm going to bring up Krista Raymer. Give me 1 second to do some magic behind the scenes. Hey, Krista.
Hey, Jay.
So
we're back.
We're back. And obviously the prelude to this was the fact that cannabis and politics are taking center stage, not just among cannabis people who follow it daily, but really the Biden and Harris team are putting it front and center in their campaign. So I think the conversation is going to be front and center between now and November. And when that happens, I wonder what the impact will be on cannabis retail once it's sort of given increasingly a green light from DC for people to buy in their home states. And one of the things that I think is interesting is increasingly people are looking online for where to find dispensaries for sure, but also what is at those dispensaries. And that coincides with something you posted today on LinkedIn. Yes, I stalk you on LinkedIn before you come on. I apologize, but a lot of people do. Here's what you wrote. Are you ready to be quoted back directly to yourself?
Oh, God. Okay.
Here was your hot take, because you said hot take. Delivery dispensaries that do not tag products are missing $, $, have a minimum spend of $75 to get delivery free. Why not tag all products that are greater than $75 with a free delivery tag? Thoughts after auditing dispensary online merchandising? So you've been spending a lot of time online, I see.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of like what we are in the business of doing is like checking out how operators are operating, what that looks like both in store as well as online. And yeah, we've been spending a lot more time looking at websites because the the things that we hear all the time is like, oh, maybe only 20 or 30% of our sales come from our website, and therefore it doesn't get really the attention that maybe an in-store experience does or inventory and assortment might get. But the reality is that a lot of our customers are looking at products or websites online before they come into store. Like before this, we were even having a conversation about how there are some operators that believe that people are looking at their websites while they're in the car in
Yeah.
their parking lot before they come into the store. So the understanding the path to purchase is kind of like something that we've been talking about for years now, but it's really, really important when we think about websites because how the website presents itself the first time the customer opens it, what they see will dramatically influence their perception of like product availability, product freshness, what there is as an option to purchase within the environment. So how you open up the stage or the relationship with the customer, a lot of it does have something to do with how the website is merchandised to begin with.
And I want to sort of, when many of the people that we've talked to, when they're setting up their footprint of their physical operation, a lot of is put on that because that's where the license is really attached to, right?
Mhm.
But a percentage of sales come online or at least driven through online. Talk a little bit about, it's a bit about merchandising, but really about look, feel, style, vibe. Like it needs to, it sometimes does not, but sometimes does match what you see online. Of course, the products, but also what you feel and see in store, even like how you write it, describe products, all those things. Like are your clients increasingly thinking about that online, offline shopping experience and how the two go together seamlessly, not from a purchase perspective necessarily, but really a look,
Mhm.
feel, and vibe.
Yeah, I think like you can validate an experience. The reality is that most people are looking at three dispensaries online before they're going and choosing which one to go to. And so in that selection, if you're an operator, basically you want to look and say, well, what are the other websites that somebody could be looking at? And does our website really reflect what our in-store experience is going to offer? And I would say in most instances, no. The reality also is that we have to take into consideration the customer who purchases on the website might be a little bit different than all of the customers who choose to go into the store all the time. There's crossover. It's not to say an online customer is only an online customer and in store is only in store, but there are slight variances. But things just like making sure that the experience looks the same, like the brand looks the same, and the same type of messaging is coming across is really kind of like the first step. Things like tagging product is about adding value add when the customer's looking at the the website. So my call out around delivery specifically, if you offer delivery and you have a minimum that is required for the customer to purchase, why not show all of those products as having free delivery that would qualify within that? The perception from a customer is like you're looking at a website and you look and you say, oh, free delivery. You already had free delivery. You don't need to do anything additionally for that. It is really just about adding extra pieces of value for the customer when they're perceiving products. And a website is about presenting products in an interesting way and connecting the right product with the right customer at the right time.
Yeah, I want to dive into that specific piece a bit because before we came on, you were describing a lot of times when you go to a dispensary's website, the deals, so the things that they're
Yeah.
discounting really are up first,
Yeah.
which may be
Hmm.
viable, but are there promotions that aren't necessarily cutting the price down for the retail? Like, how would you think about that? Like, and what is the parallel or analogy to in store that you'd like to see online when you're doing these audits?
Yeah. I mean, one of the unintended consequences of putting um, deals right at the front or the very first thing that you see when the customer gets onto the page is that you bias the customer of price points and the value of product for everything after that. So whatever those price points are that you introduce at the very beginning are going to anchor the customer. So if we present a $15 eighth, for example, then everything after that will seem more expensive or less expensive than $15. Now, if the majority of the product that you have on the website is more than $15, we probably don't want to anchor to $15 to begin with. So it's understanding like where we might be price anchoring right at the front when the customer gets onto the website. The second piece of this is thinking about how the customer goes through a website or how you scroll over information. If you walk through a physical retail environment, the very best retail environments will have at the very front of the store merchandised either the newest collection or their best sellers or some combination of those two. And then as you go through the store, you get to the back to get to where there might be discounts or special deals. That isn't to say that we want to push deals completely out of the way. I think that there is a purchasing cadence around deals that exist very differently within cannabis than in maybe like traditional fashion apparel retail. But one of the websites that we could look at, which is kind of interesting, is Amazon. And why I use Amazon as an analogy for this is because the purchasing frequency is very high. So we can't look at fashion apparel where somebody maybe only purchases 1 or 2 times a year. Like that line, the purchasing frequency and also the basket size don't line up. When we get to Amazon now, customers who are purchasing on Amazon usually purchase way more frequently than our cannabis customers. We're talking like, we were doing a little bit of research before, like somewhere in the range of 50 to 55 transactions a year, which is like insane to me.
Music to Jeff Bezos' ears.
Yes. But when you look at Amazon as a website, there's always kind of this area where there is a promotion or a highlight of a product. Very rarely is it attached to a discount. There's always a perception of newness. So every time you get onto the website, it kind of feels new or looks fresh, which would match the cadence to which you purchase. So probably from a weekly perspective. And then there's also a bestsellers. Bestsellers show up before deals. And there is something to be had there. It's like the customer's willing to look at things like best sellers or new products before they get down to deals. And so it doesn't eliminate deals from the view. Like you can always find the deals page on the homepage of Amazon, but where and how easy and in what order the customer sees it is what we want to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's a little bit, let's take a page from people who have all the data, years of data, billions of shoppers, billions of dollars, and say, what are they doing that I could implement on my website or my e-com site and really do it well? Are there any other sort of hero? Like, is it like Amazon is completely online, but are there others like, I don't know, like groceries or pharmacy or like in Canada, Shoppers? Like, are there other models we should be looking at? Or should people just like internalize their own experience shopping online and say, if that works there, look at the website, let's organize our thing just like that?
Well, I think it's important to note, it's like we can't copy and paste things. Right. Just because it works in one space doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work in another. We have to understand the reason why it is positioned the way that it is, right? Like we can't go after and copy and paste an Amazon website because functionally things need to be different in cannabis. Our purchasing frequency is different, our product price points are different. The amount of product is different also. The analogy or like analogous industries that I think are interesting to look at is grocery, but also is beauty. And some of the like leading groups that we have conversations with today will often refer to like Sephora's website because it does an incredible job of integrating social proof along with product details. So they have done something very interesting for the customer when they're shopping online is to make the product easier to purchase online. And that is to include very in-depth details and then as well as reviews around product. I mean, Amazon has integrated the same thing. In fact, Amazon has an entire program that literally pays people to write reviews so that there is social proof and real world feedback around all products that are on the website.
The other thing, just to go back to sort of what we started talking about and Sephora in particular, is that their online version of the store marries with their in-store brand. And I mean, there's also all kinds of social proof on other channels as well. But it is they do marry online and in-store really well. And also rewards, right? Or like I think reward,
like a loyalty program.
Loyalty, that's the word I'm looking for. Loyalty program for sure. I mean, when we go to Sephora to buy things for my teenage daughter, like she makes sure we have her card because that's like the best possible thing to have your parents buy things and you get the loyalty points. But it is like there are these, and let me just broaden out a little bit. There are best practices from like hero retailers, whether they be online or in real life, that are applicable to cannabis. Maybe not one for one, but like there are best practices to think about. I know you spend a lot of time sort of thinking about that and doing that. And maybe we can come back with some of those other things in future Thursdays. But I do think, what has been your experience when you work with retailers? Like what a basic retailer, like one shop, two shops, like what percentages are they seeing online sales versus in store? And like and then I guess what the percentage of that are actually informed by online that are actually happening in store, right? That's a higher number.
That is a way higher number, and it's actually really difficult to track because of the data attribution. So if we understand the traffic to the website, it's actually in most instances, depending on how somebody has their tech running, it's hard to see how the traffic travels through the website. So we would want to get an understanding of like how many people are landing basically to the homepage and then to the menu page, the two different things. And then from an online perspective, we're seeing somewhere in the range of like the average do about 20% of sales online with either some level of delivery and or pickup. Like top performing locations might be doing upwards of 30, and then there's a good chunk that are doing less than 20. So there is a big range in terms of what that looks like. I think it has a lot to do with how you're invested, not just on the actual website, but also driving traffic to your website. So like you can't sell to customers if you don't have customers coming to the website in the first place. So there's like a funnel situation that needs to be resolved to increase those numbers one way or the other. But there are kind of like hidden tricks in terms of looking at conversion to understand if there's maybe something that isn't working on the website in the way that the customer wants to shop.
Yeah, that's why I read everything Dan Mondello writes and rank really high. And set up Google My Business. If you do one thing today and you haven't done anything, set up Google My Business, because that actually does make a huge difference, obviously, if you set up sort of the geotags around where you're actually located. Krista, you've given me lots to think about, and I tell you this all the time, but like now when I had this conversation, now when I go online to buy things, I'm thinking about what I'm seeing and what thing. You're taking really the joy out of shopping for me, which is
good boy.
which is okay. But it's true. But I do take what you say to heart, because I often, when I'm going either to a new location or even in my own neighborhood, will check out what's going on online with the dispensaries in my neighborhood. And it does, how they have it set up does make an impact of what I purchase, even if I don't buy it online.
Yeah. I mean, the ability to influence a customer from the way that they perceive you online to in store can dramatically impact what price points you're selling, what types of products you're selling, who and what customers are attracted to you the most. So I think it's important. And we think about this in other businesses, but I think when we look at cannabis websites, too often we look at them from like a monolithic, like, does our cannabis customer want to buy this? It's like, well, you have a lot of different profiles reviewing your website.
Yeah, totally. Well, this has been enlightening as always, Krista. We'll see you next Thursday. I'm trying to remember what day today is. Today is Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. It's a good time to buy cannabis, actually, before it gets very busy, before a Friday, what is now spring in many places, a spring weekend. Krista, thank you for joining us here today, as always. Any
Thanks,
parting
guys.
thoughts to leave with the Cultivated Live crew?
Oh, well, next week, I think we're going to talk a little bit about some pricing tips and tricks for discounts and deals.
I like it. So it's like one leads to another. It's like a whole sequence of things you're going through, Krista.
It's
That's
like it's done on purpose.
That's why you're so good. I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. I'm going to sign out of the show. That's it for today's Cultivated Live. We encourage you to subscribe to our daily newsletter at cultivated.news. Follow us on LinkedIn or smash the subscribe button on YouTube. We'll see you back here tomorrow, which is Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on LinkedIn and YouTube. Have a great Thursday, everybody. And remember, because it's a busy weekend, buy cannabis at your local dispensary today. Go on their website, check it out, buy it in store as well. Have a good day, Krista.
Thanks, Jay.